Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Brothers Grappers, the only show that will have someone dressed in a dragon onesie trying to sweat a wrestling cold out. This week, we are looking at Futureshock Wrestling, Lotto Thunder 2026. I am your host, Petter Brothers. Or Petter, or Brothers, whichever. I don't care. I don't feel well. But we're going to plow through this no matter what. So, obviously, last Sunday, or a couple Sundays now, saw at the Stockport Guildhall, Futureshock Wrestling putting on Lotto Thunder 2026, where we saw the following participants: Pele, Danny Hope, HC Drake, Dynamite Lee Dawson, Kong McColl, Josh Easy, Gorgon, and Nadjei. So, we will run through what happened in the qualifying matches, because I'll be honest, I want to keep this slightly brief, because I have a couple more podcasts I have to record this week. So, the opening, well, let's kind of the premise, if you like, of Lotto Thunder is 8. I will even show you. So, you will have 8 cards. It's like Blue Peter. Here's 2 I have already. So, you have 8 cards, and one by one, they will ask a child or a fan in the crowd and select one of the cards at random between 1 and 8. So, obviously, for the purposes of this, because I have 2 cards, you'll need to imagine and use your imagination. So, if, say, someone opted to go for number 2, which my camera is flipped, so I'm going to say that is going to be number 2. That would be Scott Oberman. And then another person would be asked at random, and they would go, obviously, number 1, because it's all you have. And that would turn out to be facing Danny proper. So that's kind of how things work. So I can't remember what kind of like numbers they were, mainly because I have a slight life. And I say that while we're dressed as a dragon. So the first match was Pele taking on Danny Hope. All these matches seem to run pretty quickly, obviously just due to how many matches were on this show. So you have to kind of run through matches pretty quickly when it's a tournament. So Pele and Hope. Pele, obviously the big fan favorite in this match. Danny Hope, who turned his back on his longtime best friend in Joey Hayes, that came back at December, and also coincided with Dec McCarthy winning the men's Futureshock title. So going into this, obviously the entire room, barring 1 or 2 people, were cheering for Dec. Sorry, we're cheering for Danny Hope. What am I talking about? It's the illness in me. Good opener. Nothing really kind of like flashy in any of the qualifying matches, if truth be told, because you have to kind of rush through things. Hope, having struggled to get into the contest early doors with a couple members of the crowd chanting Baldy, and Danny Hope looking throughout the crowd at other bald men and trying to gain the enthusiasm and strength from fellow bald people in the crowd. Technically, I look like a monk with my hair at the moment, so I don't know which bracket I'd fall in. As it was, Danny Hope had control for a good portion of this contest. And just when it looked like Danny Hope was moments away from winning and advancing, we had the music of Joey Hayes starting up, and that led to Danny Hope being slightly distracted, you could say. Danny just saying he's not here. He wasn't, but we don't say that. This then led to Hope going to hit a move. Pele would reverse this, picking up the victory and advancing. So we have won in the semi-finals. Match 2 saw HT Drake making a return of sorts against Dynamite Lee Dawson. This is almost a kind of like a comeback for both, you could have said. Drake, who will sporadically kind of like appear from time to time. Lee, who I've said numerous times, has almost felt like the forgotten man and will also sporadically appear on a card. This was a really good contest, though. Dynamite obviously using his speed and quickness, though technically that's the same, showing some strength in this contest, while Drake is just a big man, to say the least. Drake, who you could arguably make the case had most of this contest. Lee kind of tried to mount a couple of comebacks, but always seemed to be kind of like cut off. We had Drake, who would bring his bottle of water down, spraying the crowd, giving them a shower. We would then have Drake go for his bottle, having Dawson in almost a camel clutch position. Drake would take a large swig of water, let it drip from his mouth on the head of Dawson, with a few people shouting "scruff," which I did find quite funny. Then just pouring more water on top of his head, almost christening him. We then had Lee making a comeback because that seemed to kind of like ignite a fire, which is dangerous around Dynamite. Lee then went to hit the powder keg DDT, but when trying to lift his opponent onto the top rope to hit it, Drake used those long levers called legs to get on the other side of the ropes, causing Dynamite to kind of like just turn around, disorientate him, and have Drake hitting a jumping code breaker, which was a nice move. I don't think it got all of it, because I think Dynamite might have been a bit further than it was, but it still did the job. Drake ends up taking the victory, sprays Dynamite a bit more, sprays the crowd a bit more, and sees him advancing to the semi-finals. Third match was Tom McColl and Josh Easy, technically a Liverpool derby. this, I would arguably say this was the fun match of the three. Tom, I am a massive fan of, have been for a long time now. So seeing him in a singles role, which is you don't see very often, especially at Futureshock at least, and going up against one of the rookies of Futureshock in Josh Easy, who, for someone that has not been doing this for too long, it does not show at all. He is very. I don't think I have seen a rookie have so many good matches for such little time that he has been on a show. It has really been fun to watch, kind of like Josh's progression, and I feel I will continue to feel that way. The match itself, this kind of went back and forth quite a fair bit. Josh hitting some nice moves. You could arguably make the case of went to the well a few times too often. Tom, who more experienced of the two, kind of like knew when to capitalize. His kind of like drop kick through the ropes to Josh's kind of one of my little guilty pleasure moves, if truth be told. He hits also, I will say this for Tom, he has one of the loveliest lariats that you will see. And it is really an underrated lariat because he gets some power in those lariats. But in the end, it saw Tom McColl getting the victory. Again, really good showing from Josh. Tom advancing to the semi-finals. And it really was, out of the three we'd seen up to that point, I would have put that as the top match of the qualifiers. Match number 4. If there are wrestling gods, then this one will have been put together by him. Because we had Gorgon taking on Nadjei. If I was writing like the show, I would have probably had this as a semi-final if I could have cheated the system. Because the lead up to this has been these two just butting heads effectively. So a few months ago, we had a 4-way match, I believe, for the number 1 contendership for the Adrenaline title. On that occasion, Gorgon looked like he was going to win. Nadjei rolled him up for the pin, and the leader of the Horde in Gorgon has never let this down. Has effectively been trying to ruin Nadjei ever since. Where it saw Nadjei and Tony Wright originally going to face off back in December. But Nadjei was not really fit enough. Worse for wear is probably one term you could use. So we ended up with Gorgon and the Horde stopping that. We had a 6-man tag instead. And the conclusion of that contest saw Gorgon spraying mist in the eyes of Nadjei. And ever since then, it has felt like these two are drawn together like magnets. So, heading into this contest, I didn't know what we're going to get. And what we got were 2 men beating the crap out of each other, is effectively what we got. Nadjei made a running beeline for Gorgon, Gorgon, having taken some early offense from Nadjei, hit some brutal chops to the chest of his opponent. Nadjei trying to give it equally as back. But these two just continued to kind of like beat the hell out of each other. It was a brutal qualifying match. I don't think I've seen a brutal or a match as brutal as this for some time. Because it almost felt like they both owed each other money, the way they were going at it. And as we would kind of like later find out, to which we had Gorgon advancing to the semi-finals. Due to this contest, Gorgon had to pull out through injury. So it would see members of the Horde taking his place on. We then had as your first half main event for the Women's Championship, or the Futureshock Women's Championship, to give it its full title, Holly Barlow defending against a debutante to Futureshock in Saxa. I did say the other day when I had originally recorded this, but technical issues did not allow for that to be recorded. Saxa, I have not fully seen a lot of. I'd seen her previously at Off the Page in a Rumble. The only other really kind of like thing I'd seen highlight of Saxa was being chopped by Big T. That's getting some recognition, to be fair, which went viral. But I have heard like the name Saxa, and I know kind of like how good she is, especially Louise, who I'm good friends with, is a kind of like an advocate of saying and watching wrestlers that I don't see too often, will give me a little kind of like tidbits and just highlight ones and say they're really good. They're not good. But Saxa is always mentioned as one of the top kind of like young talents. Spoiler, I have now seen her twice, so my opinion I had has changed, in a good way. I'll stress that. So the start of this match felt a bit it felt a bit off, but not in a bad way. I think this is how they were going. So Saxa, who was the heel, I don't really want to use the word heel, rule breaker in this contest. Holly, who is the lovable, bubbly character. It's not really a character, it's her. She kind of like had the better of things early doors. Done her usual kind of like gets tricked, but then does the whole pretty kind of thing. Tells Saxa to try harder. This then leads to the match really kind of like getting started. Saxa begins to get some offense in. Holly will equally get some offense and kind of like battle back. So Holly always felt like she was a step ahead of Saxa, but Saxa was very much impressive on this display. I wouldn't say fully back and forth. I'd say Holly had more of this match than Saxa. That said, it was still a really good performance from the challenger. Ended up with Holly retaining the title with a Barlow stunner. Holly retains. After the match, well, I will slightly rewind or do a Craig David. And some of the kind of like character work from Saxa playing to the crowd and shouting, telling people to, I'm being distracted, shut up, I'm trying to work here. I thought she did a really good job. Because there have been times where you will have matches where the crowd will get into it because of whoever's in the match. But they can also lose a crowd very quickly if it feels a bit monotonous or it's not really kind of like catching fire. However, where it felt early on like the crowd slightly were tuning out, I feel Saxa did a great job at bringing the crowd back into it. Equally so did Holly, but I think you do need the I nearly said the word again, the rule breaker to kind of get the crowd involved as much as the fan favorites. Both did a really good job at getting the crowd back in, I thought. Match, I really enjoyed it. Nothing bad I can say about it. I would definitely love to see this kind of like replayed down the line, because I think these two definitely put on. Well, it wasn't a bad match. I think these two could. I think they'd like to rerun it a bit. I feel. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Everyone, I think, did by the time the match finished. After the contest, Holly offered Saxa a hand of friendship and sportsmanship. Saxa shook her hand, which normally means when that happens that we may see on a return a kind of fan favorite change, but we will see what we will see. Also, please bring Saxa back to Futureshock, please. So we then came to the second half of the show as Pele took on Tom McColl in the first semi-final. I have it in my notes as the first semi-final. This was arguably my favorite match of the day. It had a very chaotic ending. The main bulk of it was pretty much kind of Tom taking it to Pele, Pele really trying to kind of like force a way back. But I think what this did was it shown that Tom is such a good hand. He really did impress me in this tournament, because I always feel with certain people in like tag teams, they get kind of like underlooked or underrated as a singles wrestler. While Tom is one half of the tag team champions in FTM, his kind of just being a singles wrestler, I think he definitely has like a future kind of like down the line. He has the charisma. He can talk. Talking to the crowd and some of the verbal jousting that McColl did honestly have me in stitches at times, where he was told to go home, and Tom's reply was, "Yeah, I will after I win this," which I thought was a great retort. There were a couple other kind of like chants that came at Tom, and bless him, he had a reply for everything. But I guess you could say that's kind of like the Scouse wit as well. But yeah, fair play to Tom on kind of like engaging. Pele, just kind of like the plucky baby face in all these. A really good contest. Felt like it was a bit back and forth, which it was. Pele would have kind of like spells, but Tom would always be there to kind of like stop him. The back end I loved so much, and a lot will probably have seen this online. So the match spilled to the outside, while people kind of message me. Hello, Mike. It's you that's making the phone, but I'm going off a tangent here. Anyway, they are fighting on the outside, heading through the crowd towards the now infamous Stockport Guildhall back door. That's probably not the right term of phrase, but I'm going to stay with that anyhow. So it looked for all the world that Tom was going to throw Prince Pele out and lock him out. Because we have seen this happen at Stockport in the past, and even at the MMU, which I think is where we actually saw it the last time, going way back. So it ended with Tom going to throw Pele out. Pele would reverse it, throwing McColl through the back door, locking the fire exit, slowly making his way to ringside to what seemed like an anticlimactic count-out win. So we got to the count of 8. Pele's on the ring apron, does his kind of little spin back into the ring. However, Tom had managed to run round, come through the curtain, dash into the ring, and the picture perfect way that Pele had kind of like done his return to the entrance and Tom running at Pele at the same time made for a perfect kind of RKO or stunner, whichever you want to. I think it's more than an RKO. It was so picture perfect. I just can't explain. I think we then had Pele punch Tom with glitter. I can't fully remember this because
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
And Alexa, who can't help me either. So it ended up with Pele pinning Tom McColl. I don't remember how he pinned him now. The replay or the little video that I post will explain what happened. But Pele pins Tom McColl. Pele with a complete look of shock and amazement on his face because he's qualified. So we have one person in the final. Who would Pele meet at the final of Lotto Thunder? So the remaining semi was HT Drake, originally going to take on Gorgon, but obviously Gorgon pulling out. We had Haley Cooling and Seraphine coming out. Both hit around the sides of the entrance that they come out of. And I had made the point that if I was Drake, I would probably come through the other way and come through the main entrance of the building and through the side entrance and run into the ring. And that's what happened. Drake dashes into the ring, looking around, does not see an opponent, looks outside the ring where both members of the Horde are just in kind of, why haven't you come through this way? What are you doing? And then Drake grabs a microphone and says, "Do you think I'm stupid? Why are you there when you should be in here? Were you trying to jump me?" And then Drake, who felt more like a fan favorite in this contest, or an in-betweener at least, decided to jump out the ring, go to attack both, but ended up being attacked himself. Throw Seraphim into the ring, where referee Reese would stop him and says, no. He's not the legal man. And then Drake just went, well, who is then? Sees Haley Cooling, jumps back out, beats him up a bit more, throws him in, and this contest starts off. And in fairness, it wasn't really much of a contest, to be fair. It felt not a squash, but it felt towards that way. Cooling did try to get some offense in, but it wasn't a whole lot, if truth be told. Had little flickers of offense. Drake was always kind of too powerful. Ended up doing, again, the water spot with taking a drink of water, drooling it onto Cooling's head, pouring water on him, and would go on to hit that kind of flying code breaker for the 1, 2, 3, setting up a Pele versus Drake final. So that was one match that I think, as this tournament kind of went on, you felt that's where we were going to go. But again, no one was disappointed. That was a solid match. It did what it needed to do, is a term that I've heard somewhere, and that's pretty much sums it up. Our penultimate match of the show was a 6-man contest with Troy Ryan teaming up with Slambulance, that being Slam Johnson and Dr. Proctor, as they took on the McCarthy Performance Centre in Dec McCarthy, the Monster Kong, and Aziz. Now, this effectively, you felt we were going to go down the lines of Slam and McCarthy trying to build up their match at the Fairfield on March 1st. But I'll kind of come to that a bit later on. So we started off with Troy Ryan for his team. Originally, it was going to be Kong, but then Aziz, who either had a lot of sugar or something, said, no, I'll start. And Dec and Kong just looking at each other and going, okay, just in shock, almost, as if to say, okay. And effectively just saw Aziz getting beat up by both Troy Ryan and Slambulance. One move I did love Aziz doing is where Slambulance tried to do a double team. They whipped him into the ropes. Aziz held on to the rope very, very slowly, kind of like left the ring. However, reversing and walking back into Troy Ryan, who is a man mountain himself, lifted Aziz up easily, throwing him through the ropes, and just effectively had Slambulance have their way with him in a sense. McCarthy and Kong just looked so lost and thinking, what the hell is he doing? Dec was not happy, obviously being the head trainer, as he felt Aziz was embarrassing him and made this very much well known, taking him to one side, having words with him saying, "You're embarrassing me, pick up your game," slap across the face to give him kind of that little G up. Got back in, got immediately knocked back down again. Ended up, though, tagging out, where we saw Kong and Dec getting their lumps in. Then it kind of broke down a bit with Dr. Proctor as my voice begins to go. Pardon. As we had Dr. Proctor being isolated for his team, McCarthy and Kong and Aziz working well as a unit. Eventually, though, we would see Slam getting tagged in, slamming, unsurprisingly, everyone in the contest. Then the match kind of just went all over the place in a good way. To which we then had Aziz and McCarthy, I believe it was, going. Oh, sorry. Before that, we had Kong and Slam in the ring. Two meaty men slapping meat, basically just plowing into each other. And for the first couple of times, no man budged. The third time, Kong seemed to just waver a bit, but this would just lead to the Performance Centre team just knocking down Slam a bit, getting the advantage back. Then in the closing stages, we had Aziz and McCarthy looking to hit, I want to say it's the tenderizer that Meat Wagon used to use, but I am thinking it's not the actual name. I'm confusing it with the other. But either way, it had them staring at Ryan, who could do nothing at all. It did not come to pass, though. But it did end with Slambulance hitting what could be the tenderizer, where you have one man kind of like holding the head, one man holding the legs, and you kind of spin opposite ways and slam them down. It's annoying me how I cannot remember this. It's so annoying me. But I have a cold, so I have an excuse. But ended up with them hitting a former Meat Wagon move, much to the approval and joy on Troy Ryan's face, who could not hide kind of them hitting the move, almost like a tribute. So after the match, we had Ryan in Slambulance shouting down to McCarthy and Aziz. However, Kong, who had kind of disappeared for the back end of this match, crawled behind Ryan into the ring, slithering, if you like, kind of just getting ready to coil, and hit an absolute spear on Troy Ryan. The second time now that Kong has hit Ryan with a spear, and it has looked devastating on both occasions. Equally, though, during the match, Kong hit a spear on Slam. Again, there is a reason I say Kong is a monster, because he is. You look at him, he is intimidating as hell. And when he hits that spear, you're not getting up. It is one of the most impressive moves in Futureshock. And you can see why kind of like Dex recruited him for that group. So, as I say, next month, March the 1st, at the Fairfield Social Club, it is meant to be Henry VIII, Slam, taking on Dec McCarthy for the Futureshock Men's title. The only thing I will say about this match is it didn't make you really, or you didn't really play amongst Ambulance, Slam, and Dec. If someone you'd brought him in and said, right, can you tell me who is the champion and who is going to be facing next month, who or where they're going to for like trying to draw it up for a title match? I'd say arguably it would probably be Ryan and Kong. The way it was done. It did. They have put a video out now of kind of Slambulance talking about the title match, but there wasn't really anything to kind of let you know that it was going to be Slam and Dec for the title, which is the only kind of like nitpickety thing I have on this contest. They could have done that a bit better. But hey, what do I know? But again, that is my only negative slant on that match. We then moved to your main event of the contest, which was Lotto Thunder and Pele taking on HT Drake. This was effectively, again, brute strength in HT Drake taking on the heart of Pele. Drake really did kind of like have most of this match on his side. Pele just refused to cave in, stayed there the entire time, stayed with it, did not back down. Hit some good moves, but it never felt like he could put together a run, because Drake always seemed to just know what he was going to do next. Drake just being a physical beast. Not too much I can really mention about this contest other than the back end, where Pele then seemed to have the momentum in the contest. Drake picking up his water bottle, spraying it in the eyes of Drake. I think he then did hit that code breaker on Pele, or he went to hit a similar move. Pele would kick out, which annoyed Drake very much. Went to grab the water bottle again. Referee Reese grabbing the bottle as well. Drake and Reese just back and forth with the bottle. The bottle spraying in the eyes of Drake. Pele getting some offense or hitting a couple of moves with a a kind of like a spinning. I mean, I have mentioned this before, but I cannot remember the move I actually thought to call it, because I don't know if Pele has actually decided on what it's called. But as you'll see from the video, he hits that particular move where he kind of gets the arm and almost does like a forward roll, but it's like a side on code red in a way. But Pele wins. Lotto Thunder champion for 2026. First person to celebrate with him was James Grayson, who I originally thought was someone trying to jump him until I realized who it was. So Gen 1 celebrate, loads of hugs. James Greenwood, who was not reffing tonight, he was our MC for the night. So we then had Grayson Greenwood with 3 kind of folders. We had a black folder, which I think was for the men's title. I think it was a blue one for the adrenaline. I think it might have been yellow for the tag titles or green. I can't know. It's been too long. So we then have Pele having to decide what route he's going to take. Gets the microphone. Genuinely seems caught out by the reaction that the fans gave him for winning, as he was in tears, as a few people were in the crowd, to be fair. He then runs through his options. He says that Dec is running through Futureshock and someone needs to stop him. The Adrenaline title, which is held by his kind of big brother in Tony Wright. The tag team titles is something that he and Grayson have been fighting for ages. And it's about time that they get what they deserve. However, he opted to go.
So there's only really one thing I really do need to do. I've got a professional shot. Sorry. It's next year, Pele will be taking on the Futureshock Men's Champion. However, on the 1st of March at Fairfield Social Club, Dec McCarthy will be defending that belt against Slam Johnson. So, on March 28th at the MMU, Pele will have a men's championship shot against either Slam Johnson or Dec McCarthy.
He opted to go for the men's championship and had a really weird atmosphere with the crowd thinking, oh, he should have gone for the tag titles. And had Grayson a bit stunned, not very, he wasn't pleased, but he had a look of a sad, I'm trying to think of the word, and words currently are escaping me. He looked a bit crestfallen that Pele had opted for the solo title. However, you can make the point that things like this do not come along too often, and having the choice of any title, going for the men's title is something he may not get another chance to do. So therefore, it seems a good decision than not. The tag titles, they can always kind of like come back to. But Grayson, who for a time looked really kind of unhappy and shocked at the decision, then kind of seemed to come round to it, poked him, seemed to think, okay, I understand. Even though a lot of the crowd were not happy, they all thought Pele should have gone for the tag titles. But I can't remember when it is. See if I can find it on my schedule, which I would imagine is going to be, I think it's March 28th, I believe, at the MMU in Manchester. March the 28th, I think, is when Pele will face the winner of either Dec McCarthy and Henry VIII, Slam Johnson, on March the 1st. So whatever comes of that, Pele will be there to face whoever is the champion, effectively. But yeah, that is going to be interesting to see what happens with that now. One question I have seen is, are Gen 1 okay? I think they are, but it probably has a band-aid or plaster over them. But again, we will see what happens in the future. Right. So that is the end of your Futureshock look back. It was a really fun show. Arguably one of the best shows they've done this year, if truth be told. It was nice also to see penciled in Nikki and penciled in Mike with their little one, because I don't see them all that often. Plus, we haven't podcasted for a while, so hopefully that is rectified, because if truth be told, if not for them two, I probably would not be doing this podcast now. So I have a lot to be thankful for because of them. So the plans for this week is I am going to try and do a TNT look back from the other week with Miles, who is near enough my unofficial co-host. We should have done this last week. Trying to get a time for both of us was not really that good. Also, I was at wrestling shows, so I couldn't particularly sort that either. So we're looking at sometime this week in TNT special, and the back end of the week we will have a Salford City Wrestling review with hopefully two very special guests, two that you have heard on here in the past. So that is exciting, because the Salford show this past Friday, I should say, was a really good show. We'll kind of talk more Salford at the back end of this week. I would say if you go into a wrestling show, enjoy it, but I don't think there's many this week. Though I think Infinite are holding one at the Ansett Brewery, the former home of Atomic Wrestling in Liverpool. So if you can afford it and if you can go, I highly recommend going. I will get to an Infinite show sometime. The card looks really good, though. I don't have it with me personally, because again, I don't have the best memory. Hence why I have to film a lot, just so I can remember, because I'm at the decrepit age of something. But other than that, thank you very, very much for listening or watching. And well done for getting through however long this episode has of me dressed in a dragon onesie. Well done to you. As I'm sweating myself away in this costume with a absolute heater going off at the side of me. But yes, enjoy your wrestling. Have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. And I will catch you on an episode very